Welcome, everybody. Welcome. This is Ben Joseph Stewart, but you might have already known that if you are coming in from the Discord chat, if you're already subscribed to this channel. But if not, Ben Joseph Stewart, you might know me from Waking Infinity News. There's quite a few other things about psychedelics and things that I could go deep into, but this is really the beginning of what was going to be called Waking Infinity Podcast. Now it is the Ben Stewart Podcast, and this will be episode 1, brand new type of branding and format from the previous ones you might have seen, and really excited to launch into this series with you all. We're going to we'll be giving you guys a glimpse about different topics that we'll be exploring in this podcast, deep dive into maybe some of the guests that we're going to have on, really going deep into topics like psychedelics, artists, the artist within, consciousness research, technology, the power of breath, things that are really popular today, like populism, free speech, the monetary system, blockchain technology, even go into the oldies, the military industrial complex, secret space program, extraterrestrial life, and the future of community. And the reason why we're getting into community is because I really think at this time in history, one of the big reasons for this show in general is the need for community, using any technology, any means at our disposal to gather one another, people of like mind and the same intention. So really, we're striving to offer awareness and solutions to a rapidly evolving world while building this kind of community. So that's you, that's me, and I'm really excited to bring you guys into this Ben Stewart podcast. Catch you guys soon. All right, everybody. We are live with our very first Ben Stewart podcast. Thank you guys for joining. Really, what we're going to get into today, like I told you in the intro, was all the different topics and some of the guests that we're going to have on this. And really, the big reason why this show is very important and timely right now in history. But without further ado, you guys see this guy over here, Gordo, and he is the producer of the show. He's also been helping with Waking Infinity News. So if you started watching Waking Infinity News from the beginning and you noticed that little by little it started looking more and more like I knew what I was doing on the back end, that's because of this cat right here. His name's Gordo. We've been friends for quite some time. I remember back in Colorado, we were jamming on guitars and singing late night. Why don't you tell the story, how we met, what your long journey was like getting you here in this room?
Oh, sorry, my mic was not on. We're good. This is live, guys, so it's work in progress. Yeah. So recapping real quick, I grew up in a small town in Virginia, very rural. So I had that itch to want to go see new places, meet new people, and I was lucky to do that right after high school. Before I went to college, I got to backpack with 3 really good buddies, and we checked out Amsterdam, Paris, Barcelona, Geneva, and a small town outside of Amsterdam. A girl that I met in high school who was a foreign exchange student kind of gave us the idea. And so it was amazing. You know, I met incredible people, backpacking, doing just the total sort of traveler lifestyle, sleeping in parks some nights. Just incredible memories. One of those trips where you just know with your buddies, like, man, this is something special we're lucky to be experiencing. So from there, I had the itch, so I went to JMU. People are familiar with East Coast, James Madison University. I actually was pretty much just sort of a generic sort of college student. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I was trying to find myself, and I was taking sort of the classic path. I actually ended up studying economics, and after college, I took a trip down south to Florida by myself and tried to get a company going, but ended up working in finance, and I don't know, I really just got to experience the whole taste
Bad
of
choice.
of West Palm Beach, and saw just the illusion sort of ripped away by being there and being like, all right, this is superficially everything that seems really cool and what you kind of aspire for in these people's lives, but it's something's lacking. And I knew there had to be more than what I had kind of been led to believe. So anyways, I headed west, packed up my car, started actually reading the story of Siddhartha, and really actually kind of finally actually looking into spirituality. I was raised going to a Baptist church, and we really did it more for community and to just find neighbors. But I didn't really fully commit to the teachings. So after that, I kind of was just sort of secular, I guess your best way you could put it. And then when I got back into reading about Buddhism and Siddhartha and just more so Eastern philosophies, it really started to speak to me and be interesting. And I knew that was hinting at something more, of what I was seeking. And then California, I was in Los Angeles, a beautiful place, but also at the same time is like the city of fallen angels. It can be, I think Jack Kerouac said, one of the loneliest places on earth. So it's beautiful in all these ways, but at the same time, I just did a lot of searching. I had a great buddy out there I was lucky to have a lot of good times with. But I was watching a lot of Gaia. I was reading a lot. I was watching a lot of YouTube. I was just really researching quantum physics and spirituality. Those were the two big schools of thought. And I was seeing a lot of overlap, and I was just going, man, like, once you kind of get a glimpse of what's behind the veil, you also start to wonder what else is behind the veil. What else have I not really been tuned into? And from there, I started getting into exploring extraterrestrial life. Are we alone? These big ontological questions of, why am I here? What's it all mean? And it can get pretty bizarre, as you know. When you start going down that road, the truth can seem a little bit stranger than fiction. And
That's where my dad went when he didn't want to go down the spiritual route. Was he went to aliens?
Hey man, whatever floats your boat. All right. So, yeah. So I then, like I said, I came across Gaia, and I actually went to this big event called Contact in the Desert. I won tickets on Jimmy Church. Some people might know out there. Shout out to Jimmy Church. Really, really cool radio host and Art Bell type, George Knapp era. And I won tickets as the last caller. Very just like, wow, this is beyond coincidental how I managed to pull it off. I'm chatting with people in the Sprecher chat room, like, should I do it? Should I call? They egg me on. Jimmy Church is like, all right, we'll do one more caller. I'm feeling generous. And I ends up hearing myself in the echo in the background, and I had this funny little dialogue with him. And then I go out to that event and just basically just sleep in my car, wake up the next morning, and there's all these interesting speakers who I've seen online, and just meet a lot of interesting people and community, that I've kind of gathered. And so one thing led into another. There was a tent there. I basically gave my info to the chief marketing officer at the time at Gaia, and she then introduced me to the owner and Jay Widener, and did a little video just saying, about talking about the event, why it's cool. And after a process being in Cali and doing some interviews, ended up working there, and that's when you and I met. Seeing you on the production floor and getting to know you, meet a lot of interesting people, and yeah, man, just continue the journey since, basically.
That's right, man. Yeah, Gaia. That was a really interesting time. I really, obviously I haven't seen it since I left Gaia. I've been back in there, but I haven't sat in there and got the feel of it. But that was a time where it really felt like, culture was booming inside Gaia, and there was a lot of like just really interesting interplay between the people that worked there. That was an awesome glimpse. It was definitely an awesome glimpse. The way I found myself at Gaia was way back. This might have been 2011 when they reached out to me to license Kymatica Esoteric Agenda, these films that you see back here on Grip. And they started licensing them. They basically just put them up there, and they were getting I don't know what a ton of traffic is, but that's what, prior to one of the employees, the old mergers and acquisitions was saying that I was one of the top filmmakers. So that I didn't know what to even make of that, other than maybe I should make more films and try and license them. And yeah, all of a sudden there was this call from one of the producers there saying, "Do you want to be on the show Beyond Belief?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll be on that." Like,
Old
is that with
George.
George Nori? Yeah, I was just like, I remember listening to George Nori on Coast to Coast AM,
Hmm.
and so I
He's
went
an
there. I did
OG.
the interview. Funniest freaking thing in the world was like I asked him if I could take a picture with him, and he was like, "Sure." I should have gotten the picture ready. It's on my Instagram page. It's
Pull it
me
up.
standing there, and as far as the arm can reach was George standing as far as he physically could stand from me. He
Yeah.
did not look happy at all. I just found that funny because I eventually grew on him. I grew on George. Um, but then right afterwards, I had a meeting with the owner, and within a month, I moved to Boulder and was a producer there. Worked on the show Psychedelica. You can see the poster right up here. And yeah, there was an interesting culture there, and you were among them. So I'll tell everybody why I thought you were a good fit. So for years and years and years, I've had people contacting me and saying, "Man, I would love to collaborate with you. I would love to do something with you. Man, we should make a film together." Or like, "Hey, let me, let me be a part of it. I'll do anything. I'll do anything." Is the mantra that I would hear, and I didn't really have somebody offering anything specific. And for me, I've always been on the artist side of things. And as far as the tech side, the producer side, anything technical having to do with building a business, building really anything beyond coming up with the idea and putting it out onto a film was still foreign to me. And so you were the first person, I don't even know if I told you this yet. You were the first person that you took a look at what I was doing, and you didn't even ask to be a part of it. You just said, "Ben, you need more of this. You need this. I feel like these things could be tweaked. I work with this other person. This is kind of what I do. I'm just going to start working on your website. Can I get access on the back end to social media? I'm going to start linking things together." So you didn't just say, "Man, I want to be a part of this. Can you just like let me do whatever?" Just you had a specific goal in mind. I didn't have to hold your hand. I didn't hear you once say, "Ben, so what do I do next?" And so that was the point where I was like, "This is exactly what I need. Somebody who knows that they know what I don't know." And so you could balance it. And what's kind of nice about it is even at the beginning of Waking Infinity News, as I started plowing through this, just getting my mind out onto YouTube, you would push back on things that you're like, "Yeah, man, love what you're doing. Like, I'm kind of curious about this thing that you would say," and you would push back on it. And that was when I realized, no, we need more of this. We really do need more of this open conversation, because even when I'm doing Waking Infinity News, it's a lot of just me talking to a camera that doesn't talk back, and I can't get facial expressions from the camera, so there's nobody going like after something that I say, so I can't tell what the receiving end is going to be like. And I love that in some respects, but I also think that I've said it on Waking Infinity News, this needs to be more of a roundtable discussion. I am not your news anchor that's going to like puff my chest, pretend like my word is law, and everybody else who disagrees either is less intelligent or they're just, an opponent that I will one day conquer.
Yeah.
It's the colonial mindset, and
Yeah.
I really love at least pointing it out so people can see it, not pretending like we the professionals are going to tell the lowly audience what they need to know. I mean, like everybody, once I started making films, I was getting taught by my audience, the people who were like, "Man, love your film. Yo,
Yeah.
you completely dropped the ball on this topic," or blah blah blah. And
Yeah.
I was just like sitting there with an proverbial notepad and a pen, being like, "Tell me more. Tell me more of what I did wrong, because this is my school of life."
Yeah.
And really, I learned more from making my films than other people probably learned from me.
Well, and I just to kind of let's just start diving deep into it so people can start to get kind of a sense of ebb and flow, and so people kind of know also we're normally going to have guests on, so Ben will still be sort of the main host, but I'll just try to kind of always be that constructive sort of feedback. I'm not going to do it just to play devil's advocate, but sometimes we know it's important to have all perspectives really represented. Even if we might both agree on a topic, it's important, I think, to have that, because and I think this is a pretty popular discussion or talking point in today's zeitgeist is like there is this idea of echo chambers and these ideas of no one is having anybody push back or give any resistance to certain talking points. And so you end up having that feed the algorithms that then feed off sensationalism. And then you have also just basically you have to create tribalization. Things become polarized that way. You know, I mean, this is why one of the topics we have, and I'll kind of just jump on because it ties into this, you know, free speech and this idea of how do we really approach today's world of massive technology, of a massive town square, so to speak, of, you know, millions, billions of people. How do we approach that with the same principles of the First Amendment, you know, and the Constitution? And, you know, I guess you could
I just have to say it's not a massive town hall. It's like millions of town halls, it feels like. I mean,
True,
like
right,
I get what you're saying. I kind of feel like that's the biggest difference is
right.
there's no one town hall anymore.
Well, ultimately, yeah, even if it's one town hall or multiple, you know, like a network of hubs or multiple ones, you got to still have a discussion. I mean, end of the day, if it's in a tiny town hall or a massive one, you still need to have a discussion. You need to have a back and forth. And I think that is what people want now more than ever. It's much more refreshing and authentic to just have that versus, you know, talking heads talking past each other and not really listening. And I think if you really study history, and you know, I've studied a lot of history, you know, I can always study more, but like just from what I've looked at, you know, it's so critical to look at the history of the ACLU and these foundational institutions that have been on the front lines for these type of things. And understanding people like Ira Glasser, who was, you know, this titan director of the ACLU for New York for many years. And, you know, why would somebody like that march in Skokie, Illinois with neo-Nazis? You know, clearly disagreed with their opinions, but he had a great documentary I highly recommend called Mighty Ira that documents all of this. But he basically, you know, said it's about principle. It's about understanding that this precedent isn't critical to be set. So people who are the same, for instance, in the South, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and various other powerful, influential civil rights leaders, they were having the same level of censorship coming at them from parties who disagreed with them. So you've got to see that you've got to take the good with the bad, so to speak. And that is kind of foundationally what the founding fathers were discussing was, you know, it's for speech you disagree with for the most part. And I get, obviously, you don't want to incite violence. And I get, you know, I consider myself, if we're going to just start being fully transparent, you know, more like a populist left type person. But even these terms we're using nowadays, liberalism, progressive, all these terms have started to become confusing and co-opted. And a big part of this is just like establishing, you know, how do you define what this term, you know, what comes to mind when you say this? And coming from a ground one, a lot of conversations I have with family, friends, and especially older family and friends around me, I'll see how they don't even have a ground one first squared, and they're already yelling about this with this, and I think just you and I, we understand these conversations and certain topics are super dense and super sensitive, and for good reason a lot of time, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. And I think people are really yearning to want to discuss these things. They're just afraid of certain repercussions.
Yeah. You know, like two things come up when you're talking about having these discussions. Well, the first thing is when you're talking about like, are you left? Are you right? Are you centrist? You know, what kind of ism do you apply yourself to? These are all, in my opinion, homogenized archetypes. Whereas for me, I find myself to be, at first I was wondering, like, do I just always stick up for the underdog? Because really, like, there are people that I will stick up for when I hear an argument, and then people will be like, oh, so you support blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, no, I can't stand that person.
Mm-hmm.
But in this particular argument, there's a certain kind of flaw of the argument itself. And I like personally the archetypes, like the trickster, because to me,
Loki.
You know, in a sense, you know, the coyote for the, you know, Native Americans, the trickster is the one that is always showing you, especially showing the people that think they know what they're talking about, you know. And this is what like any plant medicine has ever done for me. is anything that I ever feel like kind of proud, like, damn, I can talk about that topic. Damn, I can really get down on blah, blah, blah. And then ayahuasca, will really just tease it apart and show me like this is, ego puffing its chest, and it's all wrapped around a fear that you're not worthy unless you know something.
Yeah.
And so this is what I've been working with. The only clients that I ever do take on are working on specifically that, and everybody comes, especially I can't say everybody. There are some people that brilliantly come with their vulnerabilities to me, but mostly people come with their armor, and they're showing me their armor like, look at this, look at how incredible this armor looks. And for me, I show them, looks heavy. It looks heavy. It looks like
It
it's
looks
impinging.
exhausting.
It looks like it's impinging on your range of motion. It
Yeah.
doesn't look flexible. It looks brittle. Like if you try and bend it, it'll break. And and in a way, it's not a judgment, but it is. It's discernment. It's like, okay, I know you think it looks so awesome to lift that boulder above your head, but did you ever wonder, like, what do you get out of lifting that boulder above your head? Like, is that worth more than all the energy you're spending on lifting that boulder so you can show other people how to perform this incredible task? So for me, that's the one thing that comes up from what we're saying about, like, how do we categorize ourselves? A lot of the times I feel like unless you feel like a category is a fundamental ground floor upon which infinity can be awoken, which is why I came up with the name Waking Infinity, which came up at a Burning Man, by the way. It was 2013 Burning Man. But I call myself the artist. And the reason I say that is it's the only category I don't mind being hemmed in by. Filmmaker is still a little too much. Musician, still a little too much. Father, I like.
Yeah.
Lover, I like. Artist, I like. And those are like the three things that I'm like, you know what? Like the father defines me, and it doesn't limit me. Lover is the same way. An artist, man, I can find creative ways of expressing what I came here. Well, I really do believe we have purpose. I just don't believe it's just handed to you like a memo from God. I believe that you engage with yourself, you discover yourself, and in that you realize, oh, dang, that's what I was put here for, to give my gifts. And these are my gifts. I've always known I've had gifts to give, but I didn't realize that was my purpose, to give my gifts, to serve with my gifts. And that way I am completely allowed to be myself, but it's not egotistical, like showing off my abundance or showing off my this or that. It's giving my gifts away because for the sheer love of doing it, and because I know that because there's no attachments, I want to give it away, then others can take it or leave it. And there's no strings attached. And I think these topics really have to be talked about. So when you mention things like free speech, cancel culture is alive and well today. Some of the topics that we're going to be getting into, like psychedelics. The reason why I like psychedelics is because, man, if they don't break you out of rigid thinking, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we have, I almost think I love coming up with theories, and especially for the people who believe they've read a bunch of books and they believe they understand a logical argument against something. And I think that maybe we die because we get so set in our patterns. I know there's other things, but like maybe being so set in your patterns, um, it starts like all these little loops and these habits and these little things that we give ourselves away towards, and we don't have our center. It's like having feelers out, but we don't even realize that we're feeling around for something. I feel like that zaps us in some way. And I'm not saying psychedelics or things that can break you out of patterns make you younger. And I'm not saying that they'll keep you alive longer. I want to be really careful not to say those things. But I really feel that psychedelics, breath work, conspiracy did this for me. Just entertaining the possibility that the world is not what I thought it was like a psychedelic trip in and of itself. I think these things that allow us to see, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Right. And that's where the humility comes in, to where like, dang, I feel better being a student of life rather than being, being the top cheese all the time. And so that's why I like being a filmmaker, because I get to go to the experts and pretend like, treat me like an idiot, talk to me like I know nothing and I haven't even heard of this topic before. Let's just go into it. And then I get to, because I choose to be a filmmaker and an artist in that way, I get to go to the experts and they just teach me whatever I ask them about. And they get to be the experts. They get to be the one. And I just get to like pour over their words, put it into a film, put images over it, and put it out there for the world to see. So that's really what came to me with what you were talking about regarding what we're going to be getting into in this series, in this podcast specifically, is just breaking out of our habituation.
Yeah, let's jump into a few topics to kind of give the viewers a sense of what's going to be coming forward. There's a lot of great guests you and I have talked about. I know we've got some that are ready to go and greenlit, some we have in the works, but some really, really cool ones coming up, and a lot of great people who can discuss these kind of topics. Like you said, people who have lived it and experienced it. I know one of the first ones, Psychedelics, the Artist Within. You've talked a lot with a lot of leading professionals and scientists. I mean, I think that's one of the key things that, you and I've talked about that I want to try to bring always when we have these discussions is also just sort of the, I guess, analytical or scientific side. So I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We both said it doesn't matter how you get there, right? If you get there through a psychedelic trip or you get there through the science validating it for you, ultimately you're getting there. So it's important, though, we understand, though, that people are coming from different worlds and different perspectives. And for me, honestly, I would say I honestly found spirituality through like cutting edge science, through what I was seeing in quantum physics and these things, where I was just going, all right, I guess I looked at it like, well, it's a little bit easier to discredit, the trip I had and things I was experiencing and those things. It's a personal testimonial. My granddad is a scientist of infectious diseases and has always been very like instilled in me the scientific method and empirical evidence and double blind studies and all these things that just really make a robust argument behind why things are true. And I get that science is always evolving. And I think, we'll discuss this always, is just the idea of, in every time period, there are revolutionaries who are going to challenge the modern scientific thought, going back, obviously, Copernicus, Galileo, the big names. But I think we're going through that right now. And for me, most fascinating and what I love is what's happening in the fields of consciousness research. And I think, my theory is sort of you're going to see more and more of this merging between science and spirituality. And you're going to see more of this thousands-year-old Eastern scriptures and things being validated more and more through leading edge research with these powerful microscopes that can see subatomically, and these people like Adam Curry and Dean Radin and IONS and Princeton's Anomalies Research Lab and Adam's company Celeron that are using atomic random number generators to show less randomness, basically creating coherence and doing things that are basically able to measure and prove that our consciousness, essentially, big C, is able to affect matter. And we'd always, people who've dip their toes a little bit in quantum physics, get familiar with the slit experiment and wave particle duality. And, I was researching. Yeah, but you start reading about these experiments and you're going, wait, what? Quantum entanglement? You're telling me this can be attached to something across the universe potentially and instantaneously be affected? And wave particle duality, just based on the observer and measuring it, it's collapsing it. Like, what are we really saying here, guys? And most of what we're experiencing is empty space. Like, this sounds like something, it would sound crazy in some 70s person would be saying, like, man, but now it's like this. No, you can't argue with this hardcore science. Even Einstein was going, man, this is some spooky stuff. I don't really know how to handle what you're saying here, Niels Bohr. But regardless, whether you like it or not, this is more and more the trend. And you're seeing it start to, seep into all areas of life. But psychedelics, there's a renaissance right now. Obviously, you're capturing and interviewing pioneers in that field, combined with this scientific renaissance. At the same time, this massive technology resonance. I guess you could say renaissance, but like, it's all though like, what's going to win out?
Mean to say resonance?
No.
Because that sounds, I mean, resonance
Yeah,
and renaissance.
that's
That's
my
interesting.
my Tesla slip there. Freudian. But yes, I mean, so where it's going is extremely fascinating. It's all happening exponentially, at super accelerated rates all the time. And nobody really knows for sure, but we know it's happening. And no one really knows exactly, is it going to turn out dystopian or utopian, or maybe somewhere in between? But a lot of people will go, well, I know for sure it's happening. It's like, all right, guys, hang on. Like, we got to take with what we got. And obviously we can affect where we're heading. I'm a total believer in the present is all that matters type thing. But, you and I have been fortunate to meet a lot of different interesting cats on our journey and have seen different perspectives. Ultimately, what I've come to the point where I'm at currently is like, there's pretty much almost all the solutions we need are already out there. Really, really, when you really start looking everywhere and start breaking it down, the problem really comes down to implementation and execution, really getting these type of solutions implemented. There's always usually some bottleneck, whether it's a certain person, whether it's a systemic issue. You're seeing some hold up. So like, why don't we have this yet? It sounds great. Or why did we get rid of that? That was awesome. Like, and then you start going down more of the follow the money trail and those sort of roads. But it's, then the debate is this actually a conspiracy of a small elect few, or is this just because the system has become this horrible thing on its own? So
the answer's got to be yes. To me, there's got to be some people that are some families that are actually that have wanted this, but it's not the complete story, because I also kind of believe, I did a Waking Infinity News where I was talking about Jordan Peterson saying like, no, it's more ignorance than ineptitude that's running the show behind the scenes. And I'm like, I agree, but I don't think it's complete. Yeah. I think it's true, but I don't think it's complete. And the other way of saying, no, it's all a specific group of people. Right. I don't think that's real either. I feel like if they really were exactly who some of these people say they are, we'd be a lot farther along in this agenda, because, really, we at the bottom are so caught up and consumed in our own drama that we're not strategizing at all, to me. I mean, not much. There are some factions of it. So let me say it this way. I feel that, like, I totally feel what you're saying. Like, what's happening in the world right now, it's reflecting something, and implementation. You're right. All the solutions are there, because I believe that a lot of people are just like, man, can't we just go back to the way things were before we started polluting the place and just demolishing the ecology? But if you think about it, deep down inside, we wouldn't like going backwards. We really wouldn't. In my opinion, some would. And when I say we, I'm making a blanket statement. I know that some people could disagree with that. But for the most part,
even right there, I don't, to jump in, how do we define backwards, right? It's even things like that. How do you define backwards?
Loss of technology.
Okay, right.
That's the number one, is the loss of technology and what we would call civilization. But to me, like, and I don't want to go too off on a tangent, but I think that hand in hand, like the flip side of the coin of all the luxury that we live with today. Man, I was just following somebody today, and there's too many tangents to go into, but like, there's a couple people of several different Native American indigenous backgrounds that I follow on Instagram, and I go on their thread, and I see, there's this one beautiful woman singing like, this land, this land was stolen from Arapaho down to the Apache, and it just went on and on. And like, there was a couple comments in there, was just like, I'm tired of hearing about all this. And I'm like, I bet if you were Native American, you wouldn't be tired of hearing about this. You know what I mean? I bet, like, so without going into the race part of it specifically, we have all of our technology, and like, I have to say it, we've spread the Western colonial mindset so far that it's not just out here, it's in us. It's a part of the way we look at things. And when you were saying implementation, the reason why we have all the solutions, we have everything that we need, it's about implementing them. That requires a couple things: for people to believe that we actually have what we need, and to not have the scarcity mentality, because
Yeah.
there are still people that are so wrapped up in what I believe it's a psychological illness. It's some kind of sociopathy or
Well,
psychopathy.
I'll tell you, I can jump in here. Like, literally, I mean, I studied economics in college. I got my FINRA 6 and 7 to be able to sell securities. People in the biz will know. But, like, it's not like it's literally, I mean, you were taught in the curriculum, we live in a scarcity, like from ground one, that's the assumption. Scarcity,
Mhm.
right? There's only so many fish in the pond, like the law of the commons, these classic econ, micro, macro 101 things. And so, to play sort of devil's advocate here, they'll say, well, okay, there's only so much, oil or fine minerals or things on the planet or so much water. Like, there is scarcity. What do you mean there's not scarcity, right? And it's like, I think for me, a big part of it is also just like understanding it's also a big part of it is design. Are we designing it to where it's creating scarcity? Amount of waste we have is insane, especially in America.
Mhm.
All these sort of subtle things that, just short-term, short-sighted capitalism. Right now we're experiencing late-stage capitalism, starting to see like, okay, where are we seeing, obviously there's some short-sightedness here. Um, I just feel like when you do, like you said, start trying to think like abundance economics, what does that look like? What does that mean?
Have
Are
you
we talking fish farms? Are we talking permaculture? Are we talking, completely redesigning our governance? Are we talking more direct democracy? Are we talking, getting rid of tax avoidance? Like there's all these little subtle ways that are affecting the current system for the bad, and there's ways to resolve it and make it better. We haven't really seen this planet running at like even like maybe 70% optimacy, probably, like I feel like we're like a car that's like shooting out oil and running really crappy, but we could potentially be this amazing car. Like all these ideas of synergy working, like sacred economics, conscious capitalism, B Corps, granted this is a work in
Ubuntu?
progress, but like there are a lot of solutions, and maybe some say, okay, I like this one a little bit on the other. Fine. I've studied a lot of resource-based economics and different movements from Zeitgeist to Thrive to
Mhm.
Ubuntu. There's a bunch out there. It's not about debating which is better than the other. And I was kind of at a phase where I was like, no, it's Ubuntu or bust. And it's like, no, man, if that works, great. If not, like, let's try them all. Like you said, with
Yeah.
your new artist, being the artist within, it's about it's about yes and. It's not about either or. It's this and this can be true. It can be all the above. If you want to
Yeah.
be political and really in the political system, cool. You can be that. At the same time, you can also say, no, I want to just protest and I don't even want to participate in politics. Fine, that's cool too. But like all these little ways that pit us against one another is all exact. This is classic divide and conquer. This is classic power elite strategy of like, let's get them distracted amongst each other so they don't really look at the wizard really behind the machine here.
It is a lot. You're right. It is a lot by design. And I think that we also don't understand, like, I haven't met more than two people in my life that I believe are what I would call fully connected. And I don't even know what fully means. So that's coming from somebody who doesn't even understand what he's experiencing,
Right, right.
but fully connected to their higher intelligence. How many out there do you feel like are fully connected to the concept of like Taoism, the Tao, that it is, it's not that it's imperfect, like, and even trying to call it perfect is trying to figure out the characteristics of it to say that like, oh, this is what's perfect. And if it
Mhm.
strays from this, then it's imperfect.
Right,
And
right.
so many of us were so detached from just living in a flow. um I have to wonder, like, how is this perfect, I guess, is the thing that I'm wondering. Like, if I had to look at it, because I came from thinking, when I started getting into conspiracy, I needed to go down the rabbit hole of, wow, everything is wrong, everything about the world is insidious and it's wrong. And then I had to get through that barrier to realize there's a lot of like, that perspective is there. But how long does that perspective actually serve you, Ben? Is feeling that everything wrong, is that going to make you a better lover? Eventually, one day, a good father, a good artist? Everything's always wrong. That's the platform that you're going to start everything from.
It's very
So I had to
niche.
start thinking, and then I had to start thinking like, well, what is like, well, everything is right, everything is perfect as is. And then it's like, well, that's again, it's just another step on a staircase that doesn't end, it seems. And so I'm at the point now where I'm really just like being the alchemist. I'm pouring in like, well, you know what? So self-reflect, Ben. This I can tell my pattern is to always diminish myself and feel like, whoa, I haven't read a thing about this career path. So I probably don't know anything about it. Right. And then so I'll stop and I'll be like, well, that's kind of disempowering. Maybe it's true, and maybe that's to protect me from acting like I know everything about it and causing some kind of ruckus, not just being humiliated, but also like, burning some bridges with hubris, right? The fire of hubris. So then really, I guess the grand point that I'm getting at is like, we all have our opinion on the world, very few of us are consistently face to face with the tool of knowing, and I believe it is a tool, knowing that we're also full of hot air, that we got a lot of it wrong. Maybe there's a center to it, but a lot of the times I notice that with me and a lot of the clients that I work with, there's trouble in acknowledging that we've just, some people think, well, I'm going to get vulnerable, so I'm going to put this mask on. And then it's like, yeah, but you just put the mask on that you're comfortable with. Like, how deep that mask goes, and it doesn't go deep enough. So we forget sometimes it's not about the specific step. There is a journey. And when you mention like, it doesn't matter how you get there, as long as you get there. I love that because I completely agree. And then I also see that model could be limited, because is it at all about the destination? Is it not about the path of self-discovery to get there?
Right.
Because like, if you and I want to get to California, you're going to take one route, and I'm probably going to take a different route. And the map you use will serve you, and the map I use will serve me, but which one is right? And I think that's where we come off thinking that, fuck, what I just did. And sorry to throw that out there, the F-bomb.
That's cool.
I'm saying more for YouTube's sake. Don't cancel us. We're really not bad. Fine. We don't harm children.
I mean, I'm all for allowing cussing just for general episodes. Nothing like too overt, but I mean, yeah, the guests, we don't have to be
first episode.
We don't want to limit, I know.
It can't be. You gotta be.
But I feel you. I mean, I do feel you, and I think, look, like I'll throw you a curveball, or just play one to kind of. What if we, if you do believe, and this is my opinion, I think yours, but to each his own. If you do believe that we've incarnated here, and this isn't our first incarnation, it is what it is. What you're experiencing, right? So like, you obviously chose this game, right? And this type of level and this character. And once you experience it from birth, like, you are experiencing a limited experience. There's various different teachings, things that kind of touch on this sort of theory, but basically, like, this is a limited experience. You are a limitless being experiencing the illusion of limitation. And then you're kind of waking up from that dream of limitation and going, oh crap, I forgot I'm actually limitless. And that's, I think, what people kind of experience to talk about with DMT and ayahuasca and these really heavy duty, death of ego type plants that allow that realization. But you can get there various ways. Some might be a little quicker or faster, but not as qualitatively rich, but I mean, that's what I've never had a death of the ego type level of a trip. And, that is a recurring theme, though, you hear with a lot of research and scientists who talk about there's just this complete remembrance of being one with all that is. It's very loving and there's various terms, but it's this sense of being one again. And it's this sense of like just complete ego death and realizing that's your true nature, this limitless connectivity to, and I'm a big proponent of panpsychism and post-materialism, kind of talking about some of the subjects we were talking about. I mean, I think, in my opinion, that's more and more where we're heading, and all the technology is gonna be proof of concept and show that, where we're gonna be able to have consciousness tech that can integrate with actual vehicles and devices. That Adam Curry and his work, they're already starting to do these subtle things, with how you can maybe do synchronistic text based on things happening in your life at that present moment, affect mind lamp and things to change various colors based on the random number generator that being affected by your consciousness. I mean, there are going to be things to a point where I think within our lifetime, for sure, where it's going to be undoubtable that consciousness is a missing ingredient. It's not to say reductionist materialistic science hasn't been beneficial to prove a lot of Newtonian and Einstein theories and things on those levels, but when you really get down to the brass tacks of what it really is and the true nature subatomic, I think you got to just realize it is maybe you can want to call it information, but it is intelligence that has levels of awareness, and we are representation of a pretty high one because we're self-aware. But then, like, what does that mean? What kind of technology can we do with that? Like, I mean, tying this into advanced civilizations off planet, possibly extraterrestrial, like, if this is true, they're already totally in the know with that, and their crafts, based on video footage and descriptions by aircraft pilots and very credible witnesses, they're doing things that would make this theory true. Their craft being able to blink in and out of time and space, the Dr. Commander Fravor, his incident of the TikTok, jumping, half a mile or something crazy, a couple miles in a matter of blink of time. They're able to somehow use quantum entanglement on their craft and jump to point A or point B. And we know with quantum entanglement, not only is space not an issue, but time. So potentially then you're able to go possibly, start messing with time in some weird ways, forward or back. But you start to think about these things and the implications of like where we're possibly heading. It's incredibly awesome power, truly awesome power. But like everything else that we're building, the other critical ingredient is who's steering the ship, who has the final say on how we utilize these tools. But in their true nature, they're mostly tools for the most part. I mean, we have thumbs, but do you use it to pick up a weapon and murder and kill? Or do you use it to pick up a hammer and build a beautiful house? Do you create or destroy with it? So that's already what's going on currently, but that's only going to continue to be the case for forever for our species. And hopefully we just get better at it, but
yeah. No, I dig that. And, I'll have to check into that Fravor. I didn't even know about that with the Tic Tac.
Yeah, he was on Rogan. He's a really big, credible. Yeah.
Well, I heard about that. And I actually saw a bit of him on Rogan, but I didn't go too deep. And no, you're definitely right. What I love about science is especially the way it's turning. Like, I try to make the distinction, and we're going to talk about this stuff on the show a lot as well, as like, the like different kinds of technology, different kinds of science, and how it can make sense. There's a lot of people that, like, I'm sure if you're an audience member here, you've heard of these topics before. Maybe they're not foreign to you. But when it comes to like quantum physics, yeah, there's the non-locality, which literally means, the definition means it's not anywhere specific, right? which has to mean that its potentiality is everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and then so it's also retrograde causality, meaning the future can affect the present and the present can affect the past. And we think of that, it's just like, that's impossible. But that's because we don't even realize that we operate from models. And our model of time is where the paradox exists. So when we hear retrograde causality, it's probably in what Arthur C. Clarke would call an advanced, sufficiently advanced technology. And, obviously it's using a form of the quantum physics or quantum mechanics. It's using some law, and it's able to do it somehow, but we call it paradox because we can't fit it into our model. And so when I think about science, what I'm excited about is that I feel like science for a while now has really, and there will always be this, but the dominant push in science is this: we're going to figure it all out. And it's starting to go from, science as the quest to know, because that's what the word means, to know, into we've already figured it out, and it's these colleges that cornered the market on it, and it's called the science institution. So it's not science, the aspect of consciousness that wishes to know, that seeks knowledge. It is, in a sense, it's the institution. It's what people do with the power they get from having convinced other people that they have cornered the market on it. Look, we have all the technology, we have run all the simulations, we have all the data, and we're telling you this is true. Now, that's not to say it's not true, and it's not to say that what they're publishing isn't completely, on the face of it, factual, but it's also, we've lost this science is something that, oh, I'm not a scientist, leave that to the scientists. Like, no, anyone with consciousness is a scientist in training. And real scientists, people with the white lab coats and things that we would say, they are people who use the scientific method more so than most other people. But that doesn't mean that they're not biased. It doesn't mean that they don't have blind spots. It doesn't mean that they can't be paid to keep their mouth shut or fudge numbers to make it look like there weren't any side effects to this specific drug that we were testing out. And these are just examples, and it's not to point fingers. Every single institution is made of people. And when people come together in groups, you're going to find, because of potentially scarcity mentality, and maybe there is a purpose to all this, but you're going to find when people gather in large groups with a higher intention, some of those people start thinking, well, how can I get more of what this is offering? How can I have more of what this entire thing is offering, without realizing, well, that disadvantages some. And then eventually you have it, well, it disadvantages most. And then it's a rat race, and it's almost a struggle and a bloodbath to get to the top. And if you're standing on the top, unfortunately, in most institutions today, it's not because you lived by your ethos the entire way up, for the most part. And that's again, that's a blanket statement, and I'm sure those people exist, but those people, I would love to meet them, and I feel like they're in short supply. The ones who know that this isn't the efficient way. The efficient way is to play ball until I get to the top, and then once I'm at the top, then I'll do the right thing.
Right. Well, what I think something that is important that I think you and I have talked about that we really want to stress is part of the mission with this podcast is trying to be truly a unifier, taking things outside of the labels and the tribes. And, at the end of the day, I think you and I have also realized, like, there's going to be certain people who are just going to go to their grave believing something and never being convinced. And that's their choice. They're, entitled to that, and, to each his own, you do you. But you are seeing, and you've met them, certain scientists we're talking about who are a little bit more the mavericks, so to speak, who aren't afraid to be maybe getting their tenure revoked, or who aren't afraid to get maybe not as much funding because they're going into a little bit more of dangerous waters with their research. Now, I think those people, those are allies, right? And you can form these communities with these allies. You don't need to have every single person on the bandwagon to shift a cultural, zeitgeist, so finding these allies and bringing their work to light is critical. And a podcast is an amazing medium to do that, as we've already seen with some leading figures, Lex Fridman, Joe Rogan, Tom Bilyeu, Aubrey Marcus, all these kind of great personalities and people who are able to hold a conversation can really allow these people to get into the nuance, to explain what's really going on in these fields of research, and get people to realize that there is a lot to be optimistic about. There are a lot of really amazing people in these fields, even though they're maybe not being put on the cover of Nature or Journal or the prestigious magazines. It does not negate that their research is not vital and instrumental to our evolution on a lot of levels. And, it's ironic. Science has become very much like a religion, where there's this dogma of authoritative, you can't go outside the lines, you can't challenge a certain status quo. I mean, Graham Hancock, somebody you and I both love, who you've worked with, he's run into this so head on with TED and with various even institutions culturally who are saying, well, you're challenging sort of materialistic science. You're challenging this consciousness idea. And you're trying to say that, reductionist science might be wrong. And, you've got CERN and these massive industries. You've got huge prestigious colleges who are banking on, string theory or, this science being the total case. But ultimately, you know, science is about embracing these things that prove you wrong. You should like when something proves you wrong, because then it shows you, oh, well, this is a new path that I can go with, and it's right. I mean, the foundations of science are all about going where the evidence takes you. It's
For sure.
one-on-one. And unfortunately, like you're saying, sometimes people's egos might get in the way, money, various politics. But, you know, teach his own. They can do that. You know, you and I will be stoked to talk to these amazing people who are the Mavericks, who are willing to talk about it, who are willing to say, yeah, you've got a platform, I'd love to talk about it. The people that come to mind, you know, Nassim Harameyn's work is really intriguing to me. Like I said, Adam Curry with actual consciousness technology is really intriguing. I love David Chalmers' work in philosophy dealing with consciousness. Annika Harris, Sam Harris's wife, has an amazing book. I'm blanking on the name, where she's all about talking with various cutting edge scientists in the field of consciousness and this idea of panpsychism, that everything is essentially consciousness. So yeah, you know, and we're going to do our best to try to get all those personalities. Anybody out there, if, you know, we ever bring up these names, you have a connection, please let us know, because, you know, these people deserve to have a platform, you know, especially they really have some amazing research that affects all of us that I think we all can appreciate. But why don't you dive into a few other topics? So we're just getting a little bit of a breadth here.
They're not all going to be like experts in a specific field. I mean, like, no, I take that back, because, like, you know, I'm thinking the people like Rashad Evans. Okay, he's an expert mixed martial artist, but you guys will know him from the Joe Rogan podcast, where he's talking about doing 5-MeO DMT and really opening himself up to, like, man, what is consciousness? Like, what is this whole theater of life and living? And then, you know, talking about his mushroom trips and stuff like that. So I included him. I connected with him through Del Jolly on what was that? Unlimited Sciences out of Boulder, Colorado. And he connected me with Rashad Evans. And we started talking, and you know, he'll be a guest on this show. I put him on Psychedelica season 2. I think we're on the 3rd, 4th. I think maybe this coming Monday will be the 4th episode coming out.
Man. Congrats.
Maybe even the 5th. Man, it's but so we got some really cool people in there. But Rashad Evans, you know, mixed martial artist, changed his life up. So we wouldn't say he's a psychedelic expert, but man, this guy has a story. You know, so he's an expert in the how do you let go such a tough field to break into. Man, he had to condition himself, and when we condition ourselves, it's hard to decommission ourselves out of that role. And I think that's kind of what Rashad did, and he's just an amazing human being. He really is. Laura Dawn, she has Live Free with Laura D. She's really deep in the psychedelic space. She's been really including me a lot on Clubhouse. If any of you guys are on Clubhouse, you can find me there as well. And, you know, she is really a lot about what I loved. I did a podcast with her on her podcast that'll be coming out maybe in 2 weeks, I think, where we're talking about psychedelics as a means of connecting with our higher potential. And that's why I did the whole show Limitless, is like, to me, like, psychedelics is a key or a tool in our tool belt, but it is not the only thing. And, you know, breath work is yet again another key or a tool. But really, we started talking about how do we even understand what our higher potential is, and then come to understand that it's not even just being able to run faster, jump higher, think faster and quicker and better. Our higher potential doesn't exist in this one little body. It's you know, the rest of humanity and ecology at large. So we'll get Kyle Kingsbury. I was just on his podcast. He's deep in the On It and Aubrey Marcus crew there. I'm really looking forward to getting Dennis McKenna. I've done several projects with him on this. There's actually a big film project that I can't tell you guys about yet with Dennis McKenna that's going to be, let's just say, different. It's not just a film. It's an entire movement, which is just amazing. People like Zappy, you know, he's the director of that ayahuasca film, The Reality of Truth, with Michelle Rodriguez. And a lot more to come from there. I mean, man, there's plenty of people. Paul Chek is one of my favorites, and I've been on his Living in 4D with Paul Chek. He'll be on the show talking all things consciousness, fitness, and I'll just leave it at this. But maybe even have Rafe Kelly from Evolve Move Play. He's the guy who was instrumental in the founding of what parkour became here in the United States. But then he took it into nature, and he started this whole, like, it was almost like he took it back to Tarzan and Mowgli, jumping through trees, hanging from branches, crawling through waterfalls, just incredibly immerse yourself in nature, but with movement, really getting in tune with who you are, how well your balance, your posture, your coordination, all those things are, through really connecting with the elements and challenging yourself. And then people like Naudi Aguilar with functional patterns that really are blending consciousness exploration with physical and functional fitness, and it's really like using posture. And I won't get into it all now, but I showed this in Limitless. I really want to explore what is the human body. The reason why I say you are the most powerful technology, don't ever forget that, is because there's more. I think consciousness is, I still don't have it fully worked out. It's just knowing what we are aware of, or just being aware. It is the essence of awareness, but it can also be used as a tool, or maybe we use tools to augment it, for our intentions, and subconsciously we do it in different ways. But Naudi Aguilar with functional patterns, he shows that, man, like, if 2 minutes of doing this, Amy Cuddy showed on TED Talks, 2 minutes of doing this lowers your cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and raises testosterone, which is the hormone that allows you to feel like, I'm me. I can be me in this moment. I can take up my space. It allows you to spread out. You're like, yes, this is my space. I can do this. Whereas the diminished posture is really like, I don't feel like I can take up enough space. And this posture, not only is it very close to what we're doing when we're on our computers all day, but it is pitching our shoulders forward, collapsing our chest, impinging on the organs, cutting off our oxygen, causing anxiety, cutting off potentially a third of our oxygen in total. So the bottom line is that if you do this for 2 minutes, and you can completely change your hormonal chemistry so much that they're employing this, like, do 2 minutes of this if you're nervous before going into a boardroom meeting, or interviewing for a job, or having a really difficult conversation with a loved one that you need to have. Do this for 2 minutes, right? That's like a drug. You're slightly drugging yourself. And so with Naudi Aguilar, he is showing like there is a functional way to pick something up, to literally bend over, and he's breaking down different movement modalities. And he's like, I know you think you're building your biceps, but what I see you doing is causing this pitching forward, collapsing of the chest structure, getting tight in here, and causing anxiety in your future. So is that a pattern that we're going to want to have?
Right.
No,
you're spot on.
Froze here.
Yeah.
I'm so excited in that.
I know. It's a great freeze frame.
Now let's break down my posture. What does it look like? What am I dealing with?
Give it a second. This is part of the joy of being live, everyone. I think I can refresh it. Let me just try that.
I just turned it off. Maybe turn it back on. See if that works out.
Yeah, you're good.
I'm back. It's doing it again.
No, you're good.
But well, those are the things I really think that this show would be great bringing to the world. Access points to using our consciousness, and then bringing in experts to be like, how did you do it? How did you get over the obstacle of believing I wasn't enough? Or how did you figure this freaking theorem out? There's going to be a lot of really cool guests. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the key thing is, it's when somebody's really walked the walk, it's such a more richer, journey and story they can share. And they really have, they've experienced the failures just as much as the wins. And that's almost more important a lot of times to have gotten knocked down, and I mean, Rashad's done both. He's got knocked down and knocked down a few guys. So he's been the warrior very much on both sides. And Mike Tyson's another really interesting character who's seen a similar journey with. So it's amazing. You see these incredible warriors when they're young who just are like, man, once I tried the toad though, like this became the most loving, really chill guys. And
once you go toad, you're on a new road. It's like it takes you down a completely different path.
For sure. Well, I think, obviously this is just an introductory episode where we want to give everyone a little taste of what's to come. With the guests, they'll probably be a little bit longer. We'll go more into a little bit longer form conversation. But unless there's anything too much more you want to leave them on, we started this a little bit late, but for the most part, we're trying to shoot for Thursdays around 5 p.m. to start. We'll have at least a starting screen going live at around 5, and then we'll make sure things are good with the guests to have it all set up. But
are there any questions? I'm not looking at the feed. Are there?
Yeah. So we're gonna get better at trying to check out the super chats and the live chat. Everyone out there, I'm kind of focusing mainly on just the production angles and stuff, but I will try to get better at reading super chats and reading some of the live YouTube feedback as we move forward.
Yeah.
But honestly, brother, it's gonna be exciting, Uh-oh. He's back. 1 second here. I think we might have accidentally just lost Ben on Skype. 1 second. There we go. We're back. All right, cool.
Shit, man. That is one of those moments where your mouse hits that little tiny red button, one of the smallest things on the entire page. And there I go. Well, this is the first episode.
No, it's all good. I'm sure everyone out there's understanding. If not, sorry guys. I know it's the end of the world. But but dude, man, I'm really stoked.
Podcast you can go find.
Yeah, I'm really fortunate to be involved, getting to be kind of a fly on the wall of these conversations. I will try to represent the voice of the audience to the best of my ability, everyone out there. Obviously, I help with the website and social media management. So if you guys ever see something with the website or on Discord, please let me know in there as well, and I'll make sure to update and get things going. Discord is growing. We just picked up like 20 more people. There's a lot of really cool conversations going on over there. A big part of this show, like you said, is we want to build the community. We want you guys to connect with each other, make it a little bit more interactive, and find like-minded people because they're out there. They really are. And community, as you know, is so critical, especially as we're coming out of this, period where it's been really tough to get community. So I think people are going to find it really rewarding, and we're, going to do our best to bring it to them.
Absolutely, man. Well, dude, I appreciate that. And for everyone watching, send get involved on the Discord, and get involved in the conversations. If you guys have ideas of people that we may not have mentioned, people that you think would be great to interview, and also throw in a couple topics. Even if you can't think of a person, throw in a couple topics and say, like, I really want to see you guys cover this. It could be timely, it could be timeless. If we find it to be something that rounds out, and makes a well-branded, but also a well-rounded argument that should be included here, we'll definitely do that. And if you want us to shout out your name, saying like, hey, this is, X, Y, and Z that wanted to hear about blah, 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 just make it known there. But join the Discord. Make sure you're catching all the Waking Infinity news, because every now and then we'll make mention to something that was talked about in Waking Infinity news. And yeah, really excited for this. We'll be coming at you every Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern is when that's right on the button, when we're going to be bringing these lives to you. And we'll do an intro. If you guys haven't become either a member at benjosephstewart.com, or even just sign up for the newsletter, so we can send you, every Sunday we'll send you what's going on for the week, who we have coming up, so you know what you can prepare for. And at the end of the day, this is the community. Like this isn't just some random fun hobby to take up. This is really the work. This is where the work starts. It's obviously got to be fun. It's got to be jovial, but really we're bringing together some of the minds and some of the topics that need to be talked about more, but also done in a way that isn't just reactionary and pushing against a supposed villain out there. So when we say things like cancel culture, when we say things like military industrial complex, we don't even say these things as enemies. We say them as, you know what? There's a charge here. Society has charged it with so much energy. Let's just take an honest look at it, because I guarantee if we were to look at it honestly and hear several sides, several angles, take many different perspectives of the same thing, we'll end up walking out of there. I can't say we won't have some anger or animosity towards the system still within us. It's not just going to completely dissipate all that energy, but we'll at least be equipped to engage with the conversation, knowing that the intention is not to further inflame what's going on, but to actually act as, in a sense, some kind of a, not that we're always trying to quell and put out fires. Some fires deserve to be burning, but really bringing balance to a situation that could fly off the handles. So we're also looking at these things. Way back in the day, I was trying to convince this guy over here, Gordo, to go live. It was on January 6th. So, you probably all know why I was trying to convince him to go live. Like, yo, dude, like, we're having an excellent conversation that could help some people who are freaking out about what happened at the Capitol. And Gordo was like, let's get a little bit more prepared. And as you can see, with all the technical difficulties, that's why we got a little bit more prepared before doing it. But these types of things, don't assume that it's always and only going to be on a Thursday, because there may be a really important topic that we see unfolding and we're like, man, we are both free. We can talk about this. Let's try and bring a little bit of a balanced perspective to it. And some guests aren't going to have Thursday available, so you're going to find us doing this throughout the week.
For sure, man. Well, I'm excited. Much love, everyone. Keep rocking. Ben, much love, brother. I'm stoked.
Same. Peace, guys.
Peace, guys.
See you next time.